Mike Costello, and I'm with Dr. Iris Freelander. And today we'd like to talk to you about ways in which we can develop our inner knowledge. In New Thought metaphysical philosophy, we believe firmly in a strong connection between the physical life, the spiritual life, the psychological life. We believe in a connection between mind, body, and spirit, and we believe that that connection makes us whole and healthy persons. We also believe that we can build within ourselves an inner knowledge, the ability to know what we should do, how we should do it, and how we should obtain the things that we've come into this life to experience and to know. Inner knowledge is kind of an intriguing topic. I guess for many people viewing our program, maybe they've never heard of even the topic before.
Well, they just haven't heard those words, but we all know that inner knowledge is it's inherent within all of us. And everything is there all the time. When we read books, when we read information, very often we realize that we already knew that. We're just like reviewing it because knowledge is inherent within us. We just have to access it. Now, you and I believe in reincarnation. Many of our audience believes in reincarnation. Whether or not we do, the fact is that we come from some source and we're here for a time and then we go. So we bring in certain inherent information, whether it's from another lifetime or just from the inner planes of being when we're born. But we bring through that information and we can access it if we stay calm. When our mind is chaotic, then we can't access the inner information. But if we stay calm, we can. And it's there for us to access. If not, it's there. We're shown where to go to get the information. So it's all there all the time. We have but to access it.
And it really has to do with a sense of intuition, doesn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, it
That
does.
combination of intuition and also the pulling out of knowledge. One of the examples, or the pulling out of what we already know. One of the examples that I often use is that I used to play the piano. I don't play so well anymore, but I used to play the piano very reasonably well. And as I recall learning the piano as a young person and as a teenager, I would have to get a new piece of music. My music teacher would instruct me. I would practice and practice and practice. And then finally, I'd play that piece, whatever piece I was working on, and it would just be effortless. And it would be as though I always knew it. And in fact, I did, but I didn't know that I knew it. And so as I became more practiced at it, as someone reminded me of it, then it came out of me. And any of us who are good at anything, and we're all good at something, but whether it's mathematics or whether it's cooking or whether it's just being a good human being, those aspects of knowledge and awareness are within all of us, and they just come bubbling up to the surface for some of us. Mathematics never came bubbling for me, and it's not something that I enjoy. But for almost all of us, we have something in our lives that we can think about as something that we do well. And when we think about doing it, it's almost an effortless situation. And it's something that has come from within us and has been pulled out and shared with us.
And we block certain things before we come into a given life, just so we will work on other aspects of being. And so, because if we've been very proficient in one thing in a former life, then we bring it back in and do it over and over. And that's how geniuses are formed. They stay with the same subject for several lifetimes, and they're a genius in that subject. And usually a genius is not very adept socially, and they have inadequacies of which they are aware from living a normal life, because all their energies and interest is centered on that one subject. And that's okay, because they're doing what they came in to do. Because if we stay centered and grounded and then stay open to divine guidance, then we're going to do whatever it is we're supposed to do. And we shouldn't all feel that we have to do some great momentous thing, because it's usually not the average person's lot to do great momentous things. It's momentous enough just to carry on from day to day in the normal circumstances of life, isn't it?
It is. And our inner knowing simply is the power that brings us the knowledge to be guided and directed in the way that we should go. And we all need to have a sense of inner knowledge all of the time. And it's really to our advantage to develop our awareness of our inner knowledge. And one of the ways is to begin to be centered.
Yes.
And that, again, is maybe a new concept for some people. But how can someone work toward becoming centered?
Well, just meditation would be the most easy and expedient way. And as we go into meditation, we're listening. like prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening, and we're listening for that divine inner voice to give us the information we want, and we will get it. I remember once years ago when I was been married a year or two, and I was thinking I couldn't go on with that marriage because it wasn't all that delightful a marriage, and I I was centered, and I was thinking, what shall I do? And the word Tertullian came to me. Now, I had never heard of Tertullian. I didn't know there was a man named Tertullian who ever lived on this earth. I don't think I had read about him, or I would have consciously remembered it. And so I went to the dictionary, and sure enough, his name was listed. It's spelled just the way it sounds, Tertullian, Tertullian. And he was, I think, a second century church father who very strongly disapproved of divorce.
Oh.
And isn't that interesting that that word came to me? Well, I know that our guardian angels are the angelic beings around us who work, not just our guardian, there are others too. We have so much help from the inner that most of the time we deny and therefore deprive ourselves of that help just because we're blocking because of our own lack of acceptance. But I was truly praying for guidance. And that came to me. And I think it's a beautiful example of how we can gain information and gain what we're seeking if we just stay, if we are in a meditative state and we truly ask for help and truly want that help, then it always comes. It's always forthcoming. Now, very often we might say, well, that doesn't mean anything to me, and just go and just pass it off as an aberration or something. And then we don't gain from it. So we not only need to ask, but we need to explore further that which we receive. And very often things come in symbols, like that was a symbol in a sense. So we have to respect that God may give us information in various ways, and the great ones who work with God, with humanity, might come to us in various ways. We have to explore everything and not just scoff at any aspect of it.
Mhm. And as we enter these times of quiet meditation, as you said, we have to ask. But so often, in order to bring ourselves to a point of centering, there really doesn't need to be an asking, does
Yes,
there?
that's
There
true.
has to be that ability to be silent.
Yes.
And for most of us in the Western traditions, it's very difficult to understand the whole idea and concept of meditation. And unfortunately, the Western church excuse me, has developed a methodology of meditation,
Mhm.
which is far more structured and much more like prayer than traditional Eastern meditation or centering presence of
Mhm.
silence.
Mhm.
And one of the things that the founder of our church used to talk about and teach as a word for meditation was entering the silence.
Mhm.
And people who know a new thought philosophy, unity, religious science, Christian science, of those traditions are very aware of entering the silence, which is just really a time of going within and being quiet and listening to God, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And people of all faiths now are meditating more and more. As you know, I've been meditating about 50 years, and I've been teaching the concept for at least 30 years. And I've seen people change over the years so beautifully because people everywhere seem to respect the idea of meditation.
Mhm.
Where I can remember years ago, they were just appalled that, and made fun of me, and I can name instances where people did. I worked in a department store for a short time, and I would take my lunch up on the roof, and they said, "What do you do up there alone?" Because I would invite them to join me, others, but no one did. And I said, "Well, I meditate." And they were laughing about it and saying, "Hey, guess what?" And making a joke about it. Well, that would never happen today because everyone understands meditation and respects it. Well, most people do. As a rule, it's respected, and people try it. And they will say, I've heard children say, "Well, I'm meditating." And it's nice, it's lovely because they know what they're doing. So it's in the atmosphere, it's part of our concept of the universal mind, the mass mind, that this is something we need to do in order to accept and change the changes that are inevitable that we're experiencing, because change is coming so rapidly that if we don't have this grounding, this meditation aspect in our lives, or just listening, then we can't accept, we can't really live a wholesome life because it gets to be too much for us.
Mhm.
It's like seeing those movies that are so traumatic. And Titanic, now everyone's talking about Titanic, so I'll talk about Titanic. It makes people feel disembodied. It makes them feel that they're disoriented when they come out of there because they've lived through this music and sound and action that is so phenomenal. It tears at your etheric body structure. That's literally what it does. But we can accept that because we know that it's just it's a movie.
Mhm. And this aspect and importance of centering and becoming quiet and creating a meditative state are ways in which we can build upon our inner knowledge and our inner knowing. We'd like to pause for a moment at this point in the program and share with you ways in which you can obtain some information about the subjects that we're sharing with you.
We would like to give you the opportunity to explore and discover in your own home the new thought teachings that this program is sharing with you by sending you a free copy of one of these booklets. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807. Whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can reach it through confident living.
Before the break, we were sharing with you information about the importance of having peace and meditating through peace. And Dr. Freelander was sharing with us how certain aspects of our life can bring us to discordant places in our being. And you had shared that movie Titanic and music and different things do bring about a discord within our being, don't they?
Yes, but we have to accept that yes, this is going to happen, and know that it's a normal thing. And some people's constitution can take all these violent movies and not feel any emotion from it because they're not processing it through their own bodies the way others do, who might be called more sensitive or more open or more foolish. But some of us just accept that it's a part of our constitution, and we don't process it in a healthful way. So then we get wrapped up in the emotions too much.
And that's part of the process of identification.
Yes.
And many of us identify, well, all of us identify with one thing or another. But some people identify with a movie, with an action movie that may be sad or depressing or filled with negative actions or reactions. Some of us respond to the newspaper. I know people, and you do as well, that we've dealt with in our counseling and at our church center who have difficulty dealing with the current events of the day. We know spiritual people who are concerned about the cataclysmic possibilities that may take place on the planet, or traditionalists who are traditional religious believers who are afraid of the end of the world. There are all kinds of things that we identify with. And then there are sadnesses and challenges and changes and difficulties and all of the processes of life, including aging and some of the others that we may identify with. And by identifying with these things, we absorb them into our consciousness. And with the inner knowing that we're talking about, the inner knowledge that we're talking about, we can allow these things to be cast off from our consciousness, can't we?
Yes, that's exactly true. And we have to do that. We have to know that we have the power to do that. And we have the power through Jesus Christ, through God, through Supreme Being, through Creator God. Whatever we call divinity, then we have the power through that energy to do anything. And we can accept and harbor the negativity, or we can just process right through it and know that yes, these things happen, or that is a movie, that's a book, and that happened to other people. And we can pray for that person if it's in reality in the newspapers or the news. And by praying for those people, it makes a difference in their lives, because prayer goes out as light. And as we send that light out, it hits its mark every time. And it's so, isn't it beautiful to know that we really do create?
That we absolutely create.
Yes.
And the inner knowledge that we have, really and truly, is the awareness that we have of our oneness with God, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And when we feel that oneness with God, and we feel it through prayer, we feel it through meditation, through contemplation, through helping others, we feel it in many ways. And when we feel that and we honor it, then we are putting ourselves in a wonderful space. And if we can stay in that space most of the time, then we're healthier, stronger, younger looking, brighter, all those good things, because it reflects in every aspect of our lives and every aspect of our beinghood. But on the other hand, if we're morose and sad and negative, then it reflects in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And we must all remember that we're responsible for the atmosphere around us, and whatever we do affects others.
You said something that I think is very profound, and I don't want to let it get away, and that is honoring the knowledge within.
Uh-huh.
And we need to honor the knowledge that is within us. And the knowledge that is within us is that we are victorious overcomers because of the power of God within us. And it doesn't have to do with our faith tradition or our church, and we're certainly not talking about inviting people to come away from their church. We're talking about a faith and an idea and concepts of confident living and new thought faith that can be incorporated into any faith tradition. But honoring the knowledge within is tremendously important, isn't it? And
Yes,
when
it
we
is.
honor that, then we begin to give homage to it, we begin to give power to it,
Yes.
and we begin to let it flow out of us.
And isn't that beautiful? And isn't it good to know that everyone has that energy within them? We have but to accept that it's there and act accordingly. And because if we don't, then we're like, we wilt. And if we do, we blossom.
Yeah. Isn't it wonderful that everyone has it within them?
Yes.
And I think that's important for our viewers to understand, that we're not talking about Catholics or Buddhists or Baptists or Methodists or Muslims. We're talking about everyone.
Yes.
And that presence is within everyone. And it doesn't have to do with anything that we do. It has to do with the reality that resides within every one of us, and that's the divine.
Yes. It's how we accept ourselves and how we treat ourselves and how we, as you said, honor ourselves, and to honor that aspect of our own beinghood. And you know, there's a name for that aspect of beinghood. It's the holy monad. And the monad within every person is the God spark within every person. And that's their connection with Creator God. And it doesn't matter if they put a name to it or if they don't. Some people like to have a name for everything. I happen to like to have a name for everything. But we don't have to. It doesn't matter. As long as we know that we have that connection.
Right. In our faith tradition, we could talk often about the indwelling Christ.
Yes.
And we talk about the presence and power of the Christ residing within us, and that empowers us because so much of what we do and teach comes from the Christian tradition.
Yes.
But in many instances, other people have other faith traditions. And so it's just the understanding of that divine reality within, and that divine spark, as you said, is there. And if we can just let it ignite.
Yes.
And of course, we all know people who are simply aglow with this light. And they're people of all faiths and all backgrounds. And of course, they're people who have come to a real awareness of that inner knowledge, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. And we also have to acknowledge, we acknowledge that not only is the Christ within, but also the living Christ was in actuality Jesus, Lord Emmanuel, the living Christ. And there is that aspect of the Trinity. And we have double energy there. It's just like we are a part of God as Creator God. So if we don't acknowledge that, we're shortchanging ourselves. And if we don't acknowledge that, we're shortchanging God in a sense, because we're putting our responsibility off onto that aspect of being instead of saying, yes, we're responsible.
Right, and we don't have to name it Christ.
Yes.
Or we don't have to name it at all.
Yes.
But as you said, you like to name things, I do
Yes.
too, and most of us in various traditions like to name things, but we need to realize that when we name something, another faith may call it something completely different.
And that's wonderful.
And that's wonderful, and
Yeah.
it's good, and
Yeah.
it doesn't diminish. And I'm kind of amazed at how many people think that God is offended by what we call him. And in fact, God is a little bit bigger than that.
God is.
And there isn't a worry about what we name God to be. And if we think about tradition and language and translation, we're probably God is and Jesus and Christ and all of the words that we use so lovingly and that are so much a part of our faith are simply words that we know and understand. And in fact, the spirit and presence of God and of Christ and of Jesus and of all of the magnificent personages of holiness all have names that we could only imagine, and the names aren't important.
Exactly, but when we are whole, as we are whole, then we accept that all these other religious organizations, groups, and individuals have their own names, their own terms that they use, and we honor those as we honor our own. because it's just the same thing with a different name.
And knowledge is not the property of one group, is it? Knowledge
Exactly.
is the inner knowledge and the inner awareness, which is the presence and power of God that resides within all of us, is present in all faith traditions. And no one has a corner on the market of knowledge any more than anyone has a market on the corner of truth or righteousness. That is simply not exclusive to any group.
Yes, but isn't it true that all people of all walks of life, of all faiths, of all nationalities, have the same idea? Basically, they just have different names for it, different titles for it. And so if we remember that, then we always remember to honor all equally, and that there's not this division. We're all one. We just come from different aspects of life, parts of life.
And that unity among all persons, and that spiritual unity should bring us great solace and comfort instead of starting wars and
Isn't that
battles.
true?
Yeah.
Isn't that so? And we wonder how we can have lived this long and have still be into this warring modality of thinking, because 2,000 years ago the modus was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and then the love you one another became the primary aspect of being, and now we're going into the Aquarian age, and that's the emotions and the water denotes emotions. So it's quieting the emotions is what we have to work on, and as we quiet our emotions, we're more able to then reach out intellectually, to reach out emotionally, to reach out in every aspect of our being, to receive from other sources, particularly the inner planes. And when we do, then we are indeed a whole person.
But that warring of the worlds and the warring and fighting over religion really comes, I think, from the fact that we're fighting within ourselves. And until we begin to come to a peaceful place within ourselves, until we come to embrace that inner knowing, we're going to have war in the world because we have war. We're going to have conflict in the world because we have conflict within ourselves. And going back to what we talked about in the beginning of this time together was the importance of centering ourselves and the importance of being at peace and the importance of being at one with God and at one with our brothers and sisters everywhere. And that unity brings about a peace within. And the inner knowledge that we have, the greatest inner knowledge that we need to have and realize is that of peace. And when we have that, then the wars will end, won't they?
Exactly. It's like we sing every Sunday in church, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And those words might seem meaningless to some people, but they're not meaningless at all. Because as we say those words and really mean them, then that energy goes out and the peace does begin with us. And it does go out. And if enough people do that, it's like the hundredth monkey theory, that when all the monkeys on that one island off the coast of Japan were washing their fruit, had been taught to wash their fruit, then monkeys on other islands began washing their fruit. Many other monkeys were on other islands. So it's that same idea with peace. If we say that and really mean it, then peace permeates all aspects of life. And then the warring ceases because there's more peace than there is war. And those people who are promoting war then would be touched.
Right.
And we've seen that happen over the centuries, but not fully enough.
And to eliminate conflict and to begin this process of peace, meditation is certainly a good point to begin, isn't it?
That would be the best way, because we're listening to God, we're aligning ourselves with Creator God, and our energy is going up and out, and then it's also coming down a bite through our crown chakra in the center of our head. And so or into our heart, if that's how people view it. It wouldn't matter how they view it, as long as they accept, as long as they send out peaceful energy and accept that energy is coming back to them. And again, meditation is the best way we can ever know ourselves, and the best way we can ever help others, and the best way we can receive answers to our questions, or just permeate peace into all the surrounding area.
And for those who have never meditated, a good beginning point is simply to set aside some time when a person is able to be alone and quiet, and simply to be quiet and close the eyes, become aware of the breathing, and what else?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be any great and big endeavor. And I was advising someone today how to find time. And I said, there's been times in my life when I've had to go to the bathroom and sit in the bathroom to meditate. But it's worth it to do that because just 2 minutes will change your whole feeling. But you have to be where there's not chaotic energy around you. You can do it in the presence of other people if they're not sending out negative energy. But if they are sending chaotic energy, then it's easier to center ourselves if we're alone. And it would depend on those things. But as we do that and do it deliberately, we can. At the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach, they found that 30 seconds of meditation changed the endorphin level in the human body. Isn't that interesting? 30 seconds. So if people just have 30 seconds, that's wonderful. But if they have 2 minutes, that's marvelous. And if they have a longer time, then that is very fulfilling.
And meditation is, as we connect with that inner knowledge and inner knowing, helps the mind, the body, and the spirit, doesn't it?
Exactly. Because we live as you teach so well, we live in our minds and not in our bodies. And our bodies are there and our bodies are affected. But every illness can be seen in the higher bodies before they sift down into the physical body. And we can stop them through our own thinking, through our own process. And we go through life on a perception, various perceptions. So if our perception is that of love and peace, then that's what we're going to exude.
And in the last few minutes, Dr. Freelander and I have been sharing with you ways in which you can connect with your own inner knowledge. And we hope that these ideas and concepts have been useful to you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
This program is a community outreach of Christ Church. Dr. Mike Costello speaks each Sunday morning at 11 a.m., and Dr. Iris Freelander speaks on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. at the church. On Sunday evenings at 6 p.m., there is a meditation and healing service. Come and join us. You will be warmly welcomed.